the SVT-40, the Soviet rifle that soldiers loved and left behind. It's June 1941, and the world's plunging into the chaos of World War II. On the Eastern Front, a Soviet soldier grips a sleek, cutting-edge rifle, the SVT-40, or Svetka as the troops called it. This wasn't just any rifle. It was supposed to be a game-changer, a weapon to outshine anything the enemy had. With a 10-round magazine, rapid-fire capability, and a futuristic design for its time, the SVT-40 promised to give the Red Army an edge. But here's the kicker. In the heat of battle, some soldiers tossed it aside like yesterday's news. Why? What went wrong with this so-called wonder weapon? Let's unravel this mystery, blending history, tech, and the raw human struggle of war to keep you glued to the story. Guns have always been a soldier's best friend and worst headache. From muskets to modern assault rifles, every leap in tech aimed to make weapons deadlier, faster, and tougher. The SVT-40 was the Soviet Union's bold swing at building a rifle to dominate the battlefield. But as we'll see, even the best ideas can crash and burn without the right prep. This is a tale of ambition, mistakes, and the unyielding spirit of those who fought with what they had. The arms race of the early 20th century. To get why the SVT-40 mattered, let's rewind to the early 1900s. World War I showed the world that old-school bolt-action rifles, like the trusty Russian Mosin-Nagant, aka the Mosin, were starting to lag. Sure, they were accurate and reliable, but slow. Reloading after every shot? Not ideal when you're staring down a trench full of enemies. The world's militaries craved something faster, something that could keep up with the chaos of modern warfare. Enter the semi-automatic rifle. Unlike fully automatic guns that sprayed bullets, semi-autos fired one round per trigger pull but reloaded themselves. Think of it as the sweet spot between precision and speed. In the 1930s, every major power, America with its M1 Garand, Germany with its Gur 41, and the Soviets with their own designs, was racing to perfect this tech. In the Soviet Union, two engineering rock stars, Sergei Semenov and Fyodor Tokarev, went head-to-head. Semenov's ABC-36 rifle got a brief moment in the spotlight with about 60,000 made, but it was a clunker, too complex and prone to breaking. Tokarev's SVT-38 showed more promise, and after some tweaks during the Soviet-Finnish War of 1939 to 1940, it evolved into the SVT-40. By 1940, this rifle was ready to roll out as the Red Army's next big thing. Why the SVT-40 was a big deal? The SVT-40 wasn't just another rifle, it was a leap forward. Here's what made it stand out. 10-round magazine. Unlike the Mosin's 5-round clip, the SVT-40 had a detachable magazine holding 10 rounds. Swap it out and you're back in action in seconds. Fire rate. It could pump out up to 30 rounds a minute in semi-auto mode. The later AVT-40 model, with full auto capability, could hit 60 rounds a minute. That's some serious firepower for a rifle using the beefy 7.62 by 54 mm cartridge. Gas regulator. This nifty feature lets soldiers adjust the gas flow to keep the rifle running smooth, even when it got gunked up in battle. Bayonet knife combo. The SVT-40 came with a slick dagger-style bayonet that doubled as a combat knife, way more versatile than the Mosin's clunky four-sided spike. Sniper ready. With a mount for a scope, it was a sniper's dream, offering precision and quick follow-up shots. On paper, the SVT-40 was a beast. It was like the sports car of rifles, sleek, powerful, and packed with features. But as any car guy knows, a fancy ride needs maintenance, and that's where the trouble started. The Eastern Front, where dreams meet reality. When Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union on June 22, 1941, the SVT-40 was in the hands of about 14,000 Soviet troops, mostly in the western regions that took the first hit. These soldiers nicknamed it Svetka, a nod to its sleek design and firepower. But the honeymoon didn't last long. The SVT-40 was a diva. It demanded constant care, cleaning, oiling, and TLC that just wasn't practical in the chaos of 1941. The Red Army was retreating, supplies were scarce, and soldiers were often fighting for days without a break. Compared to the Mosin, which could take a beating and keep firing, the SVT-40 was high maintenance. Its 124 parts, including 20 springs, didn't play nice with mud, snow, or neglect. The fatal flaw, the bolt hold open. Here's the real plot twist. The SVT-40's biggest strength was also its Achilles heel. It had a bolt hold open feature, meaning the bolt stayed back after the last round was fired. This was supposed to make reloading a breeze. Just slap in a new clip, compatible with the Mosin, and tug the bolt to get back in the fight. Genius, right? Not for everyone. In the heat of battle, with bullets flying and adrenaline pumping, many soldiers, especially green recruits, saw the stuck bolt and panicked, thinking the rifle was jammed. Instead of reloading, they'd chuck the SVT-40 and grab whatever else they could find. Time was life, and they couldn't afford to fiddle with a broken gun. This wasn't just a design quirk, it was a training failure. The Red Army was stretched thin in 1941, with millions of new recruits thrown into the fray. Many had barely handled a rifle, let alone a complex semi-auto like the SVT-40. They were used to the dead simple Mosin, and the SVT's bells and whistles threw them for a loop. Other hiccups. The bolt hold open wasn't the only issue. Loading the magazine was tricky. Patrons had to be stacked just right or they'd jam. For a seasoned shooter, no big deal. For a rookie under fire, a nightmare. And then there was the maintenance thing. Dirt, frost, or a lack of oil could grind the SVT-40 to a halt, while the Mosin just kept chugging. By 1942, stories of abandoned SVT-40s were piling up. It wasn't that the rifle was bad, it was just too much for an army in crisis. The Soviets needed weapons that could take a licking and keep on ticking, and the Mosin fit that bill. Not everyone hated the SVT-40. Some soldiers swore by it, and for good reason. Navy SEALs of the USSR, the Naval Infantry. The Soviet Naval Infantry, think of them as the Red Army's version of elite troops, loved the SVT-40. These guys were often better trained and more technically savvy than regular grunts. They took the time to master the rifle's quirks, and it paid off. In amphibious landings, where every shot counted, the SVT-40's rapid fire and accuracy were lifesavers. These sailors knew how to keep Svetka singing, even in the toughest conditions. Snipers, precision with a punch. Snipers were another group that couldn't get enough of the SVT-40. Its scope mount and pinpoint accuracy made it a killer choice for picking off targets. Unlike the Mosin, where you had to work the bolt for every shot, the SVT-40 let snipers fire follow-up rounds in a flash. In a war where seconds meant survival, that was huge. Even the enemy was impressed. Here's where it gets wild. The Germans loved the SVT-40 too. After steamrolling Soviet forces in 1941, they captured thousands of these rifles and put them to work under the name Selbstlagewehr 259, R4 Russian. German special units used them extensively, and the SVT-40's design even inspired their own semi-auto rifle, the Gur 41. The Finns, who fought the Soviets in the Winter War, also snagged a few hundred SVTs and were blown away. They tried copying it but couldn't crack the code. This tells you something. When used right, the SVT-40 was a rock star. It just needed the right hands. The Soviet war machine. To really get the SVT-40's story, let's zoom out. The 1930s were a wild time for the Soviet Union. They were industrializing at breakneck speed, trying to catch up with the West while bracing for war. Factories churned out tanks, planes, and guns, but quality often took a backseat to quantity. The SVT-40 was a bold bet on high-tech weaponry, but it came with a catch. It was expensive and tough to mass-produce. Building a rifle with 124 parts required precision engineering and skilled workers, resources the Soviets couldn't always spare. By 1941, they'd made about 1 million SVT-40s, but production dropped to under 300,000 in 1942 as the war drained resources. The simpler, cheaper Mosin and PPSH-41 submachine gun became the go-to choices, arming millions of troops on the cheap. Global arms race. The SVT-40 wasn't alone in its struggles. America's M1 Garand, the gold standard of semi-auto rifles, had its own teething problems early on. Germany's Gur 41 was notoriously finicky. Semi-auto tech was cutting edge, and every country hit snags. The difference? The US had the luxury of time and resources to train troops and refine production. The Soviets, fighting for survival, didn't. Legacy in modern firearms. The SVT-40's influence didn't die on the battlefield. Its design, especially the gas system and detachable magazine, lived on in later weapons. The most famous descendant? The SVD Dragunov, a sniper rifle still in use today. Soviet engineers learned from the SVT's highs and lows, paving the way for more reliable designs. The SVT-40's story isn't just about metal and mechanics. It's about the people who carried it. World War II was won not by fancy gear but by the courage of soldiers who faced unimaginable odds. Some fought with Mosins, some with PPSHs, and some with SVT-40s. But they all shared one thing: grit. The bolt-hold-open fiasco showed that even the best tech is useless without training. Those who mastered the SVT-40 turned it into a deadly tool. Those who didn't left it in the mud. This human factor is what makes the SVT-40 story so compelling. It's a reminder that tools are only as good as the hands wielding them. The Soviet soldiers who pushed to Berlin didn't win because of one rifle. They won because they refused to break. Fast forward to 2025, and the SVT-40 story still resonates. In a world obsessed with the latest tech, AI, drones, you name it, we're constantly chasing the next big thing. But the SVT-40 teaches us that innovation without preparation is a recipe for trouble. Whether it's a rifle or a smartphone, you've got to know how to use it. It's also a tribute to resilience. The Soviet soldiers who fought with Svetka faced chaos, loss, and impossible odds, yet they kept going. That's a lesson for all of us. When life throws curveballs, it's not about the tools you have, it's about the heart you bring. The SVT-40 wasn't perfect, but it was a bold step into the future. It was loved by snipers, revered by enemies, and cursed by rookies who didn't get it. It's a story of big dreams, tough lessons, and the soldiers who carried the day. From the battlefields of 1941 to the history books, Svetka left a mark that's still worth talking about. So, what do you think? Would you have mastered the SVT-40 or tossed it for a Mosin? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's keep the conversation going. Don't forget to subscribe for more epic dives into history's wildest stories. Hit that button, share your take, and let's geek out together.